My dear wonderful friends,
I stand before you today, not to merely interest you with fantastical ideas, but to awaken within you the tremendous power that has been dormant all along. What you seek has always been seeking you. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and today I will reveal how to access it in ways most so-called manifestation experts have completely misunderstood. For decades now, you've been told that visualization requires vision boards plastered with images of luxury cars and beachfront properties. You've been instructed to repeat affirmations until your voice grows weary. You've been sold crystals and told to raise your vibrations through exhausting rituals. And yet, the manifestations you seek remain frustratingly elusive. Why? Because everything you've been taught about manifestation is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of the law. I have dedicated the past 15 years to studying the complete works of Neville Goddard, not merely the popular quotes circulated on social media, but his entire philosophy developed through hundreds of lectures and 10 groundbreaking books. And what I discovered was shocking. The manifestation techniques being taught today are not only ineffective, they directly contradict Goddard's most powerful teachings. Neville Goddard was not just another spiritual teacher. During the mid-20th century, while others spoke of positive thinking, Goddard revealed the profound secret that consciousness is the only reality. His techniques transformed countless lives, from penniless immigrants to successful business owners, from the desperately ill to the remarkably healthy, all through a simple yet revolutionary approach to the imagination. Today, I will reveal the 3 critical misunderstandings about Goddard's teachings that prevent most people from manifesting their desires. These revelations completely transformed my own life, taking me from a struggling entrepreneur buried in debt to building multiple successful businesses and finally living the life I had only imagined was possible. The first shocking truth about manifestation that Goddard taught is so contrary to mainstream teachings that it will likely challenge everything you currently believe. The second revelation explains why your past visualization efforts have failed to materialize despite your dedicated practice. And the third insight will free you from the exhausting manifestation hamster wheel that leaves so many spiritually burned out and disillusioned. But before I reveal these transformative truths, let me be absolutely clear. What I'm about to share is not speculation. These are not my interpretations or personal techniques inspired by Goddard. What I'm sharing are Neville Goddard's actual teachings, often quoted directly from his lectures and writings, teachings that have been diluted, misunderstood, or deliberately hidden because they eliminate the need for expensive courses, manifestation coaches, and complicated techniques. Imagine for a moment that everything you desire, the financial abundance, the perfect relationship, vibrant health, and profound purpose, isn't something you need to attract from outside yourself. Imagine that your consciousness is not separate from your manifestations, but is the very substance from which they are formed. This is the foundation of Goddard's teaching, and it's the key that most contemporary manifestation gurus have completely missed. Neville stated, "The world is yourself pushed out. Not partially yourself, not symbolically yourself, but literally yourself externalized. Every person you encounter, every circumstance you experience, is but a reflection of your own consciousness made visible." This means that manifestation is not about attracting something external. It's about awakening to what already exists within your consciousness. When you truly grasp this principle, you'll understand why techniques focused on bringing things to you are fundamentally flawed. You don't attract what you want, you manifest what you are. Your world is nothing more than your consciousness objectified. Consider this remarkable story from Goddard's own lectures. A woman desperately wanted to visit her son stationed overseas, but she lacked the financial means for such an expensive journey. Rather than visualizing the money appearing or repeating affirmations about abundance, she followed Neville's advice precisely. Each night before sleep, she would imagine falling asleep in a hotel room in that foreign country, feeling the distinctive texture of foreign sheets, hearing the unfamiliar sounds outside her window, and experiencing the joy of being near her son. She did not question how this journey would become possible. She did not repeatedly affirm, "I am wealthy enough to travel." She simply assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled and fell asleep in this state. Within weeks, an unexpected series of events unfolded, culminating in an all-expenses-paid opportunity to visit her son, something she could never have orchestrated through her own planning. This is the first misconception I'll be dismantling today, that manifestation requires you to attract something from outside yourself, when in truth, it's about expressing what already exists within your consciousness. Friends, I cannot emphasize enough how revolutionary this understanding is. When you recognize that the world is yourself pushed out, you'll stop exhausting yourself trying to change external conditions and instead focus on the one place where all creation begins, within your own magnificent imagination. The revelation I'm about to share next will explain exactly why most visualization practices fail to produce results, regardless of how diligently they're applied. This single misunderstanding has kept countless sincere seekers trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment, never experiencing the manifestation power that is their birthright. Are you ready to discover what Neville Goddard really taught about the imagination and how to properly use it to manifest your desires? The truth will astonish you, liberate you, and finally give you the key to unlocking the manifestation mastery you've been seeking all along. My beloved friends, now we come to the heart of Neville Goddard's revolutionary teaching, the second profound misconception that has kept true manifestation power beyond your reach. This revelation alone has transformed countless lives once properly understood and applied. The misconception is this: you need to keep affirming and visualizing repeatedly to manifest your desires. How many of you have diligently created visualization routines? Perhaps you meditate each morning, visualizing your goals with crystal clarity. You might repeat affirmations throughout the day, attempting to program your subconscious mind. You return to these practices night after night, week after week, often for months, yet the manifestation remains elusive. Why? Because Neville Goddard taught something radically different from these mechanical repetitions. He revealed that manifestation occurs not through repetition, but through what he called living from the end. This principle is so fundamentally different from conventional manifestation techniques that most teachers completely miss it. Goddard stated unequivocally, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled until your assumption has all the sensory vividness of reality. He wasn't speaking of a brief visualization exercise performed during meditation. He was describing a complete psychological transformation where you mentally dwell in the state of your wish already being fulfilled. Let me illustrate with a personal story that demonstrates this principle perfectly. Years ago, I was introduced to a man who had studied directly under Neville Goddard in the 1950s. This gentleman shared how he had transformed from a struggling salesman to the owner of a thriving business through the correct application of Goddard's teaching. He told me, most students of manifestation make the critical error of visualizing their desire as something separate from themselves, something to achieve in the future. Neville taught me to mentally live as though my desire was already fulfilled. Instead of repeatedly visualizing successful business outcomes, this man began to sleep each night in the absolute conviction that he was already the successful business owner he desired to be. He didn't affirm I will be successful, or money is coming to me. Instead, he completely embodied the state of already being successful. When he walked as a successful businessman would walk. When he spoke with the quiet confidence of someone whose financial concerns were resolved. He didn't pretend or act a role. He genuinely shifted his self-concept at the deepest level. Within 6 months, opportunities appeared that transformed his business completely. But the remarkable thing was how effortlessly these changes unfolded. He didn't struggle or strive. The external world simply reorganized itself to match his new assumed state of consciousness. This is what Goddard meant when he wrote in his masterwork, "Feeling is the secret. To impress the subconscious with the desirable state, you must assume the feeling that would be yours had you already realized your wish. In defining your objective, you must be concerned only with the objective itself. The manner of expression or the difficulties involved are not to be considered by you." Can you see how dramatically different this approach is from the visualization techniques commonly taught today? Conventional teaching has you visualizing yourself attaining your desire, while Goddard's method has you mentally dwelling in the state where your desire is already attained. The difference is subtle but absolutely critical. One approach perpetuates the gap between you and your desire. The other eliminates that gap entirely in consciousness. Goddard explained this principle using a biblical metaphor. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. The end your desire fulfilled must be first in consciousness before it can be first in physical expression. When you truly live from the end in your imagination, the means to that end will naturally appear in your physical reality. Let me be absolutely clear about what living from the end truly means. It is not about visualizing for 20 minutes and then returning to your previous state of consciousness. It is about persistently occupying the state of consciousness that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. Throughout your day, in your conversations, in your expectations, and especially as you fall asleep at night. Goddard emphasized the moment of falling asleep as particularly potent for impressing the subconscious mind. He taught that the thoughts and feelings you entertain while falling asleep sink deeply into the subconscious, where they germinate and eventually express themselves in your outer world. This brings us to the third misconception that has prevented you from manifesting your desires effectively, perhaps the most pervasive and damaging misunderstanding of all. The third misconception is, manifestation requires positive thinking and high vibrations. The contemporary spiritual marketplace is saturated with teachings about raising your vibration, maintaining positive thoughts, and eliminating all negative emotions. Vision boards are plastered with smiling faces and inspirational quotes. Manifestation journals prompt you to list gratitudes and affirmations. All of these approaches fundamentally misunderstand what Goddard actually taught. Neville Goddard never spoke of vibrations or frequencies. He never suggested that negative emotions would contaminate your manifestations. Instead, he emphasized one thing above all else, the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But here is where most students of manifestation go astray. The feeling Goddard referred to is not emotional positivity. It is not happiness or excitement. The feeling is the conviction of being or having the thing desired. It is the natural feeling that would be yours if you already possessed what you are seeking to manifest. In his lecture, Feeling is the Secret, Goddard explained, feeling is the secret of successful prayer. Feel yourself into the state of your fulfilled desire and continue feeling yourself in this state until all doubts about the reality of your state dissolve. Consider this profound example from Goddard's own teachings. A woman desperately wanted reconciliation with her estranged sister after years of bitter conflict. Rather than using affirmations like "my sister and I are reconciling" or visualizing a future meeting, she followed Goddard's actual method. Each night before sleep, she would imagine a specific scene, receiving a letter from her sister expressing love and a desire to restore their relationship. She didn't merely visualize reading such a letter. She cultivated the deep feeling of relief, gratitude, and natural joy that would accompany such a reconciliation. She felt the texture of the paper between her fingers, saw her sister's familiar handwriting, and experienced the emotional satisfaction of their relationship being restored. Most importantly, she did not approach this as a technique to make something happen in the future. She assumed the consciousness of someone whose relationship with her sister was already healed. From this state, she naturally expected communication from her sister. Within weeks, without any outward action on her part, she received precisely the kind of letter she had imagined from her estranged sister, initiating the reconciliation she desired. The outer world had reshaped itself to conform to her inner assumption. This brings us to Goddard's revolutionary concept of the law of assumption, which differs fundamentally from the commonly taught law of attraction. The law of attraction suggests that you draw to yourself what you think about and feel. The law of assumption, as taught by Goddard, states that what you consciously assume to be true will manifest in your reality, regardless of evidence to the contrary. But here is the critical distinction that most teachers miss entirely. The power is not in the visualization itself, but in the assumption of the state of consciousness that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. My illuminated friends, we now arrive at the integration of these profound truths, the practical application of Goddard's authentic teachings that will transform your manifestation practice forever. Let us synthesize what we have learned. First, we dismantled the misconception that manifestation involves attracting something external. Goddard taught that the world is yourself pushed out, your consciousness externalized. Second, we revealed that manifestation isn't about repetitive visualization, but about living from the end, mentally dwelling in the state of your wish fulfilled. Third, we discovered that manifestation doesn't require positive thinking, but rather the feeling of the natural assumption that your desire is already yours. Now, I will share with you the precise method Neville Goddard taught for applying these principles, a method so simple yet so powerful that it transforms lives with an almost miraculous efficiency. This method bypasses the conscious mind's objections and speaks directly to your subconscious, the true creator of your reality. Goddard called this technique the law of identical harvest, taken from the biblical principle that you reap what you sow. But he gave it a revolutionary interpretation. What you sow in consciousness, you will inevitably harvest in experience. The key to effective manifestation lies not in what you do outwardly, but in what you plant in consciousness. Here is the exact practice, as Goddard taught it, refined to its essential elements. First, clarify exactly what you wish to experience. Be precise, not about the means of achievement, but about the end state itself. If you desire financial abundance, define clearly what that abundance means to you. If you seek a loving relationship, identify the essential qualities and feelings of that relationship. Second, and this is where Goddard's method diverges dramatically from conventional teaching, create a scene which implies your wish is already fulfilled. This scene should be short, simple, and imply the completion of your desire, not the process of attaining it. For example, if financial freedom is your desire, your scene might be as simple as hearing a friend congratulate you on your financial independence, or seeing your bank statement reflecting your desired balance. If perfect health is your goal, you might imagine a routine physical examination where your doctor expresses amazement at your perfect health markers. The scene must imply the fulfillment of your desire, not the journey toward it. This is critical. Most visualization practices have you imagine working toward your goal. Goddard's technique has you imagine having already achieved it. Third, enter a state of relaxation where your conscious mind's objections are temporarily suspended. The ideal time for this, as Goddard emphasized repeatedly, is the drowsy state just before sleep. In this receptive state, your subconscious mind is most impressionable. Fourth, and here lies the true secret, enter your imaginal scene and animate it with all your senses. See it clearly, hear the specific words being spoken, feel the emotions and physical sensations that would accompany this scene. Smell and taste the elements of the scene if relevant. Make it as vivid and real as possible. But here is the crucial element most teachers miss. You must feel the naturalness of the scene. It should not feel like a fantasy or a future hope. It must feel natural, as though you are simply remembering something that is already part of your experience. As Goddard said, you must be in it, not looking on. You must be part of it, giving it all the sensory vividness of reality. As soon as you feel the reality of the state assumed, results follow. Fifth, repeat this imaginal act until it has the feeling of reality, what Goddard called the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is not an emotional high, but rather the quiet certainty that comes when something is simply true for you. Now, let me address the most common questions and objections that arise when people first encounter Goddard's authentic teachings. How long should I perform this imaginal act? Goddard was clear. Continue until your imaginal scene feels completely natural, until it has the tone of reality. For some, this might occur in a single session. For others, it might require several nights of falling asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. What if I can't visualize clearly? Goddard anticipated this concern. He emphasized that the feeling is more important than the visual clarity. Even if your visual imagination is weak, you can still feel the reality of your scene. In fact, the feeling of naturalness is far more important than vivid imagery. How will I know if I've done it correctly? Goddard taught that when you have successfully impressed your subconscious, you will experience what he called a peculiar satisfaction. There comes a moment when your entire being accepts the reality of your imagined state. At that point, you can relinquish the conscious effort, knowing the seed has been planted. Must I repeat this practice indefinitely? Absolutely not. Once the subconscious is impressed, the outer circumstances will rearrange themselves without further conscious effort on your part. As Goddard stated, you never have to persuade anyone to bring your desire to pass. Once the subconscious is impressed with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the entire universe moves to bring it into expression. Let me share one final example that illustrates the perfect application of Goddard's method. A student of mine had been seeking a specific position in his company for years. Despite excellent qualifications, the opportunity never materialized. After learning Goddard's authentic technique, he created a simple scene where his manager was congratulating him on his new position and handing him the company ID card with his new title printed on it. Each night for 1 week, he fell asleep, imagining this scene, feeling the weight of the ID card in his hand, hearing the specific congratulatory words, and, most importantly, feeling the complete naturalness of occupying this new position. He didn't imagine wanting the position or working toward it. He imagined already having it. After a week, he experienced that peculiar satisfaction. Goddard described a quiet certainty that it was done. He then released the conscious effort entirely, continuing his daily work without anxiety or forced positivity. Within 3 weeks, through a completely unexpected reorganization that no one could have anticipated, he was offered precisely the position he had imagined. With even better compensation than he had hoped for, the universe had indeed rearranged itself to match his assumed state. My dear friends, the power of Goddard's teaching lies in its astonishing simplicity. You need no special tools, no crystals, no complex rituals, only your wonderful human imagination correctly applied with understanding and faith. Now that you know what Neville Goddard really taught, you can stop wasting time on techniques that don't work and start experiencing the results you've been seeking. The world truly is yourself, pushed out, and when you change the concept you hold of yourself and assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the universe has no choice but to reflect that change back to you in physical form. I invite you to begin tonight. Choose one desire, create a scene that implies its fulfillment. As you fall asleep, enter that scene with all your senses and feel its complete naturalness. Do this with the knowledge that you are applying the authentic method taught by one of the greatest spiritual teachers of the 20th century. Subscribe to this channel for more videos revealing the misunderstood teachings of manifestation masters. In my next video, I'll show you Goddard's revolutionary technique of revision that allows you to literally change your past and reconstruct your life from a new foundation. The power has always been within you. It's time to claim it through the correct application of your wonderful human imagination.